if you want to talk about Troy Deeney and his sacking at Forest Green Rovers.
talkSPORT understands Troy Deeney has been sacked by Forest Green Rovers after just 6 matches in charge.
I think Dale was absolutely right to castigate him. He might want to wonder why he employed him in the first place.
To be honest with you, Troy Deeney's got the sack for telling the truth, because as soon as the players go over the white line, it's down to them.
Dubbo, who was poor and awful again, and I've just told him 6 months ago that kid had a kick to go to the Premier League.
Darren steps up, right-footed and blazes it over the top of the crossbar. It's over for Coventry, and Luton Town are back in the big time. It's a crippling blow for Darren.
Now he won't get a game in the National League. Every time the ball comes to him, he looks like he kicks it with his shin pads. So is that me or him?
He can say what he wants to him in the dressing room, but not to the public.
I feel a little bit sorry for Troy Deeney and what he said. He'd be kicking himself.
I think it was a mistake. I'm actually quite unhappy about it. Just not the right thing to do for the club or for the players.
Troy Deeney has got the bullet 29 days into his reign after just 6 games. I'm guessing it's maybe a combination of awful results and the fact that what he was talking about regarding players and maybe having a stinker and coming out and telling the world what he thought, rather than just sit down with the player and speak one-to-one with him. Maybe you can't actually do that as a manager, but he has gone, he has been sacked. And you can have your say on that by picking up the phone 03717223344.
You've got no problem with managers doing that, though, have you?
I think in such a short space of time in his reign at the club, when results aren't going your way, everything you do, you need people on your side. If there's any decision you make or you say anything in the press and it has a negative effect and it doesn't help you either on the field or off the field, I don't really understand why you would do that. If you're a well-established manager in the Premier League and it was, I don't know, halfway through it and you weren't getting the best out of a player that you knew was fantastic and you thought that's the only way you're going to get anything back from him.
Like the Sancho Ten Hag situation.
Are you saying that tongue in cheek?
No, as in, like, obviously he come out and criticised someone publicly and then obviously Jayden had to
and
go
it
back.
didn't work. Well, that's slightly different because Man United, a massive club in the Premier League, they paid an extortionate amount of money for Jadon Sancho, and for whatever reason it didn't work between the manager and the player. But whenever we were asked, whenever the press asked Erik Ten Hag what the problem was, he didn't go into too much detail.
Well, no, after a while he said nothing, didn't he?
Exactly. And maybe I think that's the answer. I don't necessarily think what Troy Deeney came out and said after such a short space of time being in the dugout, I just couldn't see the benefit of it.
The only thing I'd say about it is a short space of time, but remember he's been there longer than that.
As a player?
As a player, so he's not like he's just rocked up, but it's one of those where he's been incredibly harsh to the players. I mean, what he said, was it Dabo about the kick for the Premier League?
Yeah.
It's harsh, and the only thing I could think of as to why they've parted ways is that the owner thinks, you know what, he's completely lost the players here. There's no going back from this. Like if they had an inkling or any kind of feeling that, you know what, maybe what he said is right, I think the players might respond to it. I think they probably would have kept him. But I think the owner's gone, you know what, he's absolutely annihilated every single one of the players in that dressing room. They're probably not going to play for him anymore. They're probably gone, you know what, I've had enough of this. And he's gone, you know what, it's probably best for all concerned that they part ways, because there's no coming back from this, and the result's going to get worse and worse and worse. Listen, Troy, he's had a go at it. He spoke honest and openly. I think he came out and said that he wished he hadn't been as harsh because the feelings got the better of him. And that bit I do get with certain managers, and that's why I always think to myself, sometimes you've got to look at certain scenarios and go, do you know what? As like Forest Green's press officer or whoever's in charge of the press, just go, do you know what? Probably not a good idea for you to do the interview, the post-match today. Let your number 2 do it, just so you can have a few hours to think about it before you speak to the press. But still, it's happened now, and he's going to have to rebuild.
Have a listen to this. Forest Green Rovers owner Dale Vince spoke exclusively to talkSPORT's Bradley Hayden at the launch of Green Football Weekend. He said he was disappointed with Troy Deeney's comments about his own players and explained why he decided to fire him.
I think it was a mistake. I'm actually quite unhappy about it. I think he shouldn't have said it. I think he's apologised for it now, so he understands it was a mistake. And he's obviously brand new to the coaching game, so maybe as part of that emotion as well. He felt emotional after that last game, but it was just not the right thing to do for the club or for the players.
But can you understand some of his frustrations of what he's seen on the pitch this season?
Yeah, I think we all have frustrations, right? As fans of Forest Green, staff of Forest Green, everybody around the club has frustrations, but no, it doesn't justify that. No, it doesn't.
That was Dale Vince, the owner of Forest Green Rovers. I don't think it helps matters that Forest Green Rovers are 24th out of 24. They are, 7 points from safety? They've got a couple of games in hand, but either way, I just wonder if that would have happened if they were sort of sniffing around the top part of the division. I don't know, maybe it would have done.
Do you know what? I'm listening to his interview there, and clearly he didn't like what had gone on there. The way that he spoke about the players and that. So that, I think more than anything, he's gone, no, I'm not having that. Even out of, not even just like just life, a human being.
Yeah.
The way he spoke about the players, I think the owner's gone, no, that's not for me, that.
If he could still do a job on the pitch, right, he's their second highest scorer this season, Troy Deeney. If there was a way back for him on the pitch, would that work?
No, because I think the owner would be scared. How do they integrate him back into the dressing room? Because players won't be able to help it. Like the way he's criticised them as a manager, and listen, if that's how he feels, I think he's got his right to address his players however he wants to, right? But I think now trying to integrate him back into that dressing room as a player, so he's on now level footing with some of these guys, they're going to be like, no, I'm not having it.
Okay. Let's speak to Seb, joins us, a Forest Green fan. Hello, Seb, how are you?
Hiya, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
Hello.
Thank you for asking. What do you make of it all?
So I think the situation's a mess at Forest Green, to be honest. I've been a season ticket holder there for a few seasons. I've done some work there. And I can say through and through the club, there is genuinely quite a mess. And I think Deeney's own words were that he said the inmates were running the prison. And I think there is a lack of organisation at the club. And to be honest, I think it comes from the owner. And I do think he had a point. Do I think it was right going out and saying it to the public? I'm not sure. But I do know where he's coming from, to be honest.
Seb, you know when he got the job, I know you guys have had a really, really tough season, I get all that. But did you see any kind of change whatsoever the moment he took over, or was it just as bad as it was before?
I think we did see a change, to be honest. And so I went to Forest Green Swindon, which is a very big derby in the area, and we came out fairly positive. I think the club's been poor, but overall, they weren't that bad. They were having some structure, and to be honest, players such as Dabu, in my opinion, did have a good game there. We came out and thought, well, these are some solid players. And so it's a bit confusing. I don't know why he's come out and said that Dabu's had an awful 6 games when, in my eyes, we came and watched him and he was quite solid. But I think Deeney, when we did go to the Swindon game, on the sidelines, he was a bit of a hothead, to put it that way. He was not leading the team by example. He had really flashy clothes on, constantly shouting. You could hear it from the away stand, which was pretty high up. And some of the words and language he was using and phrases were not really appropriate.
Seb, would you have him back as a player?
I think it would be a bit awkward now, considering in the dressing room, he'd be looking around, seeing all these players who he's pretty much slandered in public, said, particularly Dabu. But I think maybe I'm not sure on the ins and outs on how the player relationships would be, but I would suspect it'd be a bit awkward. But if he was to come back and score goals, then of course have him any day.
Okay, thanks for that, Seb. It is a tough one. I get both sides to the argument, but football's a very fickle business, right? If he comes back and scores goals, keeps you up every day.
Yeah, of course, but it's probably I can't see that reaction. Not because Troy's not good enough to do that, because he is, but I just don't know if the players will take to him coming back into the dressing room. So it might be best for both parties that they just go their own ways.
Okay.
talkSPORT Drive. Super opinionated sporting debate. Monday to Friday afternoon from 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.